In this video, I'm going to go over how to create an app on code.org that could be used for the AP Computer Science Principles Create task, or if you have a midterm final for a computer science class, this is a good project to do. And what I like about this project is that it's simple and it's going to hit all the things that you need to hit for the AP Create task. It's going to include lists, it's going to include sequencing, selection, and iteration. It's going to have functions in it, and we're going to pass some parameters, and we're going to put some comments in. So everything you need on here will be covered, and we're going to do it in a simple format. So the description of my project and what its function is I'm going to put in the year, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the name of the president, and I'm going to put his portrait into the frame here. Okay? And in order to do that, what we need is we need a data set. So I'm going to go to politics under the code.org data sets, and I'm going to get US presidents, and I'm going to import the table. And we have one issue with the table that we're going to have to fix. And it's um, this part right here. No, first part is the incumbent we're going to have to fix because it's not a number. And then we can add in Donald Trump, 47th president here at the bottom too. Okay, so couple things we need to do. Just some setup before we start this. I made this picture here and imported it with a little empty frame here. I have label for LBL president. Who was the president in? Question mark. I have a label here, LBL year, and I have a text box here to enter my year, so TXT year. All right, so when we run this and enter the year, it's going to, I'm actually going to go to a second screen. So I'm going to duplicate this, screen one. You really don't have to do this, but I'm just going to do this just to show you. So I'm going to go to screen two. And what I'm going to do is on screen two, above this frame, I'm going to put in an image holder. Okay, in this image holder, and let's adjust the width. Let's adjust the height, just so we can fit in that frame there. Kind of reposition it a little here. I'm going to, this is going to, where my portrait's going to go of the president. So I'm going to call that IMG president. Okay. On my screen two, I'm going to get rid of the text box. So the text box I'm going to delete. And I'm going to take this label year and I'm going to call it LBL president name. Okay. LBL president name. And I'm going to adjust, I'm just going to make this empty. Okay, now I have a frame here and that's going to be too small. So let's move this, make it wider. Okay, so I'm going to make it wider and then I'm going to change the height. We could also just put in some numbers here, but I'm just going to use the up and down arrows here. Okay, let's reposition it here. Um, I'm going to give it font size, keep that font size 33, same font family, and text color, I'm going to use white, just like the top here. Okay? All right, let's go back to screen one and go to my code. All right, so the first thing I need to do is I need to get my data into variables. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say first off variable, and let's go to blocks. Well, I'm going to have to do this first. So let's say, let's call this president list. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to get the column. Let me move this here. Sometimes it's easier with blocks. I'm going to switch it back to blocks in a second here. Okay, all right, now we're able to switch it back to blocks. So I have to tell it, I'm on my table, US presidents, and I want the column of the names of the presidents. So we're president right there. Okay. I'm going to put a comment on the top here and says, get my lists needed for project. Okay. Go back to blocks. All right. So the next thing I'm going to need is I'm going to need in the data, I'm going to need the year they took office and left office so I can get a range here so I can do an if statement to see if the year I enter is in this range. Okay, so again, we're going to drag a variable in. And I'm going to call this min year. And then I'm going to get the column. And my column is going to be, again, table US presidents. And I want took office. Okay, so that's the year they got in. And then same thing for the max year. So the max year, we're going to say US presidents. And we're going to do left office. So this is going to store those values into a list. All right, the other thing I need is I need the URLs of my presidents. So president URL, and that is, if we look at our data, that's in the portrait column. Now, just a warning, some of these links don't work. So some of the images you'll have to replace, and I'll show you how to edit that. You'll have to find a different picture of the president if you want it to work for every single year on here. Okay? I'll show you ones that don't work when we're testing it. Okay, US president, and then we want portrait. So that portrait column has all the URLs. Okay, good. Okay, the next step, we want to get from the text box. So we want to get the year from this text box here. All right, so what I'm going to do, let's put a comment in first. Okay, so we're going to say get year from text box and call function to get the president's name and pick URL. All right, let's go back to blocks. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in an on event handler. Okay, and when text year is changed, what we're going to do is I'm going to create a local variable. So inside the function, and I'm going to say variable year is equal to, and I'm going to get the number from the text box. Okay, so we want to get number, so that we want this right here, get number. And we want to get the number from the text box, text year. Okay, once we do that, we want to call a function. So we want to create a function. Okay, well, let's just set up the call statement to it. Let's do that. We're going to call a function called, let's say, search president, and then we're going to send it the, the parameter year. Okay? All right, so that's what my on event's going to do. Okay, so now we're going to type in our code for searching through the list of presidents and trying to find where our year fits within the min year to max year range. Okay, so we have the search president function that we set up. Okay, so let's write that. So we're going to go search president. Okay, No, I'm going to use the variable y to represent year as the argument that when I pass the parameter year to that. So I have to use y within my function. Okay? So now what do we want to do here? We want to set up a for loop. Okay, and by the way, we've just used functions with parameters now, so we hit another checkbox that we needed for the AP Computer Science task, create task. So you have to use functions with parameters. Okay, so I got variable I equals 0, I less than, and I'm going to put in president list dot length. Okay, now we want to use selection. So we've used iteration, which was a requirement, which is looping, and now we're going to use selection. So now what I want to do, and it's easier for me to go through and do this with text. So I'm going to write this inequality statement. I'm going to say if y is greater than or equal to min year bracket I, 2 ampersands for and, y is less than or equal to max year for I. All right, so it means it falls, the year falls within that range. So if that is true, what I want to do is I want to create some local variables. So I'm going to call this president name, and I'm going to grab from the president list at that index, I'm going to grab that president name. Okay? And same thing with the URL. I've already used the name president URL, so let's just call this URL. And I want to grab president URL bracket I. Okay? Now at this point, we can call our function. Right? Well, let me put in comments for this just so we know. So this function traverses the list of presidents and looks for where the year falls within min to max and stores president's name and pick URL. Okay, the other thing it's going to do, it's going to call the update screen, sending this information to it. Okay, all right, so let's go back. All right, so at this point right here, we're going to call, after we get that president name and URL, I'm going to call update screen, and I'm going to send it president name, and I'm also going to send it URL. Okay, so my last thing I have to do is I have to make our update screen function. Okay, so let's put a comment in for that. This function takes in president name and URL and displays to screen 2. Okay, so we have to have 2 parameters. Now, let's just use generic X, oops, generic X and generic Y. So president name becomes X within the function, URL becomes Y. And then what we're going to do, the first thing we have to do is we have to switch screens. So we're going to say set screen, screen 2. And then we're going to set text. So we're going to set text, and it's going to be LBL president name, which is on screen 2. And we're going to send it and we're going to put in there X, which is the president name. And then we're going to, we need to look for set image URL right here. And that is image president. And we want to use the variable Y here because that stores all the URLs. Okay? All right, so hopefully we don't have any errors. Let's test it. I run it. Let's say I put 1970 and I have an error. Line 20. What did I do? Update screen. Oh, I forgot to name my function update screen. That's easy fix. Update screen. Okay. Reset. Run. 1970. And we get Richard Nixon. Okay, so it works. Okay, we run it again. We go 1960. And we get Dwight D. Eisenhower. We run it again. We do 2022. And we have a problem. We don't get Joe Biden. Okay, so why don't we get Joe Biden? So let's just take a look at the data. So if we look at the data, the max year when that's left office column that we grabbed, it has text in there instead of numbers. So that is messing up our conditional statement, our if statement. So what we need to do is we need to edit this and we need to put in, instead of incumbent, we need to switch this to 2024. Okay, and make sure it's saved. It is saved. Okay, now let's try it. We run it. We put in 2024 and we get Joe Biden. Okay. Now, if you wanted to update this list, you can easily either type in, create a new list, or I'm sorry, create a new column here, or you can export this, copy and paste Donald Trump into 47 and put the information in and you'll have it updated. Okay, so you can easily get it up to date to 2025. All right, that's it. I hope this video was helpful to you, gave you some ideas for certain projects you can use for AP Computer Science Principles, or for if you just have a final exam that you have to do something. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more good math and computer science videos.